Hey everyone, Zach here from Windows Central and welcome back to another video. Now today we're taking a look at Windows 11 build 22557. This build includes a lot of new features over the last build video that we did. So let's dive straight in and starting with the start menu. Microsoft has finally brought back a feature that was on Windows 10 but was sort of removed in Windows 11 with the new start menu, but is now back. The ability to create app folders within this pinned interface here. So I can now pick up an app, drag it over another one, and create a folder like that. And I can make them as big as I want, and then click into them to see the actual folder. So that's pretty nice to see. That's been returned. Unfortunately, you can't rename them, at least not yet, but hey, baby steps at this point. You can see this is nice. It's a nice animation there that plays when you're clicking in and out of it, and that looks pretty good. If we move over to the system tray here, a few things have changed with these flyouts. The quick settings panel is still here, and the only thing that's really changed here is the focus assist button is gone. And that's because Microsoft has sort of rebranded focus assist and moved the button to activate it. It's no longer called focus assist, it's just called focus, and it can now be found in the notifications panel instead via this button up here. You may have also noticed that, at least in this build, the notification panel is going to the very top rather than just sitting down here unless it's full. Even with one notification, it's now spanning the entire height of my display. So that's an interesting change. But yes, you can enable and disable Focus Assist with this button up here now, which makes more sense. Before you had to go between the two panels, which made no sense. But now they've moved it into the panel when Focus Assist is actually active. Sorry, Focus, not Focus Assist. That's its old name. It's now just called Focus. And down here at the bottom, you may have noticed that Microsoft has also added the ability to create a focus session. Now, this was a feature that was introduced in the Clock app a handful of months ago now. If we launch this here, you'll see that there is focus sessions. Press on Get Started. You could start that within the app, and you've been able to do that since Windows 11 launched. But you can now also start that directly from the shell interface. So if we click down here and start on the focus, that will pop up that, and now my focus session has begun. And so whatever it is I've set up for this focus session, that begins to take effect, and I can now get on with my work or whatever. And you can see we have this little sort of window that you can move around. I can press stop, or I can bring that into the full Clock app there, which is pretty nice. Now, if we jump into settings, you'll also see that the Focus Assist area has been updated to reflect its new name, so it's now called Focus here, and there are a number of new options. Let's stop that focus session again, get rid of that. So you can see we have a different options here. Use focus sessions in the Clock app, hide badges on taskbar apps, hide flashing on taskbar apps, and turn on Do Not Disturb. And then we also have our notification options here as well, which is basically unchanged from what it was on the shipping build of Windows 11. So that is pretty nice. So moving right along, if we jump into the File Explorer here, you'll see that there's now a new pinned files area. So you can now pin any file you like directly to this page, and it will no longer sort of disappear after a little while. So I can right click on this, pin to quick access, and now Pitch for Windows 11 will now remain in my File Explorer quick access area for as long as I've kept it pinned there, which is pretty nice. If we jump into OneDrive here, you'll see that there's a new drop-down menu that appears, which gives you an overview of how much storage you're using in your OneDrive cloud storage. And then you can also open up your options for OneDrive if you'd like to do that from here as well. And if you click on that, that will pull up your recently synced files in the OneDrive flyout via the taskbar, which is pretty fancy. Now, if you use Windows 11 on tablets, Microsoft has introduced a handful of new gestures that will help you navigate the shell interface with a finger. So in this build, you can now swipe up from the taskbar to access the start menu, or swipe up from the system tray here to access the quick settings panel. And those will follow your finger. So if I do it slowly here, you'll see that it sort of follows my finger up and down. Same goes for the quick settings panel here, and that looks pretty nice. They've also updated the behavior of the notification shade. You've always been able to swipe in from the right to access it, but they've updated the behavior so that it now follows your finger rather than just automatically play a preset animation. So that gives the sort of effect of a more fluid interface. It's now following my finger rather than just playing an animation because I swiped in from the right, which is pretty nice. Of course, you can do sort of flick gestures and they will all open as expected. So I can flick that up to open starts. I can flick that up to open this quick settings panel, and I can flick that open to open notifications. Widgets are still available on the left-hand side, and nothing has really changed with that. Now, one more sort of gesture I guess they've added to Windows 11 is within the start menu itself. I can now swipe to the apps list or the recent or the recommended area just using a finger. So if I swipe to the right there, that will pull in the apps list, and then I can swipe back. Same goes for the recommended area. If I swipe right there, that will pull up my recents, and then I can swipe back as well. So that's pretty nice. Now, moving right along, Microsoft has introduced another new snapping UX for Windows 11. Yes, there are many ways to snap apps in Windows 11 now. You can drag the apps side by side just by dragging the window to the side of your screen, or you can hover over the window controls here to access this drop-down Snap Assist menu like so. But now there's a third way. If I just grab and hold this window, you'll see that at the top of the screen there's a sort of hint at a UI. And if I pull my window up there, you'll see that that same Snap Assist sort of UI drops down, and I can now enter Snap Assist via this interface here as well. So this is just another way to sort of initiate snap mode if you're somebody who's using multiple apps and don't really like waiting for the menu to drop down from the window controls or dragging your cursor to the left or right of your screen, especially cumbersome if you're using an ultra wide. You can now drag up to the very top here and get access to those same layouts like so, and that looks like that, which is pretty nice. Also, this was a change in the last build, but I didn't do a video on the last build, so I figured I'd demo it here. But they've also updated how these apps look when you resize them when in snap mode. One of the apps, usually the one that isn't active, will sort of disappear and just show the logo, and the other one will remain on screen. And the reason for that, I think, is performance. This just makes the interface a little bit more fluid rather than trying to resize both apps at the same time. It just sort of hides one, which I think is what the iPad does. Other platforms have definitely sort of toyed with this UI, and now Windows 11 is doing it as well. Now, another new feature introduced with this build is a feature called Live Captions that will analyze the audio coming out of your device and display text subtitles if there is speech being played. So if you press the Windows key, Control and L, that will pull up the Live Captions interface, and now that is running. So if we launch the web browser here, for example, and go to youtube.com/Windows Central. So if we scroll down, let's see.
Hi, I'm Daniel Rubino from Windows Central. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel for our continuing coverage of Windows 10, Xbox, Surface, and our in-depth PC reviews.
Pretty cool, right? So no matter what audio you're playing, doesn't even have to have captions built into it. Windows will do its best to try and display text as subtitles, which is really cool. You can change the position. You can move it to the bottom if you'd like, which is a more traditional sort of place for captions. You can also make it floating if you'd like. You can also filter profanities, and you can also change the caption style as well. That opens up settings here, and you can configure all of that here. So if I change that, we can change it to white and black, small caps, large text, yellow and blue, and so on and so forth. So that is pretty fancy. Now, this build also brings back the drag and drop feature on the taskbar, so you can now finally drag a file from one app onto the icon and then paste it into the other app here, which is pretty nice. You can see that's syncing real quick because that was a OneDrive file, and that has now pasted into this app. Fantastic. That's sort of crucial functionality that was missing from the launch build of Windows 11, but it's now finally here on build 22557. While we have the File Explorer open, if we jump into pictures here, you'll see Microsoft has also updated the sort of folder thumbnail UI. It now gives you a sort of hint at what's in there. As you can see in my screenshots folder, there's nothing but images, so that's what you can see in this folder preview here, which is pretty fancy. If we jump into Task Manager, Microsoft has also updated the Task Manager interface. It now finally has dark mode, and it's looking pretty fancy. Now, this is still a bit rough in this build. I assume there's more work to be done here, but this sort of first preview here is pretty nice. You can see that it's looking as intended. It's basically the old interface wrapped in a new interface. You can definitely clearly see that this is the sort of old Windows 10 interface here, wrapped around a Windows 11 sort of body, I guess. So there you are. There you are. We have our processes. We have performance here. We have our app history, startup apps, users, details, and services. So also new with this version of the Task Manager is a new feature called Efficiency Mode. Microsoft did sort of test this last year, but they pulled it from the builds. It's now back, and what it essentially does is tells apps to calm down if they're using too many resources. You can see that the button for it is up here, though it is grayed out because none of my apps are misbehaving. Oh, apparently the Synaptics Pointing Enhancement app is misbehaving, or at least Windows I might think it's misbehaving, so I can enable efficiency mode. I have lost it. Let's bring that back. There we go. So I press on that. Do you want to turn on efficiency mode for this app? Efficiency mode will lower the process priority and improve power efficiency, but may cause instability for certain processes. Do you want to continue? Yes. Surely nothing can happen to my touchpad driver. It's actually still working fine. So there you are. So that's how efficiency mode works. Pretty fancy. We're going to turn that off, and it is now free to rain hell on my CPU if it wants to do so. Another small thing, they've also updated the animation that involved when sort of snapping things into quadrants. So it now works like so, which is pretty cool. That was missing in the shipping build of Windows 11. But it's back, which is pretty nice. So another change Microsoft has made is they've also updated the animation that plays when rotating your device. If you're using a tablet, this makes sense. I'm going to try and demo this on video, but we'll see how it looks on the actual recording here. So if I turn to portrait, I mean, you can see it. You saw the animation was smoother, and then we can turn it back here. And that's pretty nice. So that looks better in real life, just so you know. But there you are. That is a look at that improvement as well. Finally, and this is a very subtle change, unfortunately. In the internal builds, it was a way more pronounced change, but they've definitely dialed it back a bit for the public build here. They've added the Mika blur effect to title bars. So if we launch, say, the run dialog, for example, and like I said, it's really hard to see. You really got to sort of think about it to see it. But this title bar is now slightly translucent with a lot of blur, and that allows the wallpaper to sort of blur through ever so slightly. Again, this was a way more pronounced change in internal builds. It looked almost like aero glass internally, but they've definitely dialed it back here to the point where it's kind of basically unnoticeable now. I'd love a slider to be able to configure how translucent this interface becomes, because I'd love to sort of see my background blur through title bars a bit more than this. But hey, there you are. That's also a change. And that is, in fact, the last change we're going to be taking a look at today. That's all the big changes in build 22557. Like I said, this is a big release for the Insider program and for future Windows 11 releases. Thank you so much for watching, and we shall see you in the next one. Bye-bye.